What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of 20 Percenters, where we focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. And I have the pleasure of sitting down with Coach Casey Halstead, the founder of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. And, dude, I appreciate you squeezing us in with such a busy schedule.
It's my pleasure. Once I found out you were Eric's brother, I was like, how could I not do it?
It's like you were saying before we got on the mic, it's all about who you know, and sometimes you're related to those people. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I was tracking you down once Dom put us in touch, looking at some of your YouTube stuff, and your message is quite incredible, because not only are you a specialist at coaching jiu-jitsu and martial arts, but you have a massive influential message on just being an entrepreneur, a father, like the well-rounded individual. I wouldn't classify you as someone who's limited to what they do and their identity.
Exactly. One of the most important things when I started opening up gyms, I knew that my credentials as a competitor were not going to be enough. There's just so many world champions in Orange County, California, where I started. Mm-hmm. I knew that I had to have like a different angle in order to compete in the space. So my 4 pillars that I started the gym at, the fourth one was actually good jiu-jitsu, but the first one was like health and fitness, community, culture, and then obviously jiu-jitsu, because we have to teach excellent jiu-jitsu because that's the backbone of our business.
Right.
But I knew if that was all that I was selling,
mm-hmm.
that I would have a hard time competing in the space.
Sure.
And so we've always built our program around culture and health
mm-hmm.
and fitness, and that's really kind of developed me into this entrepreneurial mindset, because we're not just focused on that. We're focused on building everybody from the inside
mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah, I noticed on the whiteboard behind you, you've got a couple of, you got one big question, but also a statement that I wholeheartedly believe in. And you say that you are in charge of your happiness, and it's followed by a massive question. How do you find the time to be a good husband, business owner, father, etc.? How do you balance all of those responsibilities? And I'd love to just get your answer on that question.
I actually, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that,
mm-hmm.
and I have a note here, so excuse me while I pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You got 2 kids that are positioned for scholarships. It sounds like you've got a rock solid relationship with your wife, and you've obviously you're crushing it as far as business is concerned. So
I mean, the thing. So here's a thought that I've been thinking of, and this answers this question directly. So the feeling of needing to be done only applies if you are doing something you don't love. Make a life of seamless transitions from loving your family to loving your life's work to loving your friends. And so for me, it's not even a matter of really making time. It's because everything I do in my life is seamless. I have no work. I have no feeling of needing to be completed or done. That doesn't exist in my world. I call, spending time with my family, watering the garden. So I water the garden every day. I go home, and one of the things I have to teach my kids is they get off of work at 6, they go to sleep at 11, and they're at home with their families. And when I say kids, I mean my students. Mm-hmm. And they're at home with their families, but they're disengaged. They're watching games. They're on their phones. And I contest to them that if you train for 3 hours a night and you give your wife 3 hours a night instead of 6, she'll be more happy. Because when you're pursuing something, a hobby or a career, in addition to having like work, the price that's paid is not your price. It's the people that love you at home are paying the absolute price for mm-hmm. that. So I would contest that if you give them less time but more quality time, that they're going to actually receive that better.
Sure.
So I make sure that when I go home, I engage with my wife. I put everything away and I ask her how she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, how you doing? How was your day? And I'll
Yeah.
sit down present in the moment and actually listen. And that goes a long way.
Sure.
And people that struggle with time management, typically it's because they're not giving attentive time to the issues in their life or the people. And so my whole thing now is just trying to create a seamless life where I don't feel like I need to be completed. It's just I go from one love to the next.
Sure. Oh, that's beautiful. Is your wife involved in your business?
So that's it. Yes, she is, but she doesn't train. I've been trying to get her to train for 16 years, and she's like, that's why I got you. But she's an attorney.
Oh, right on.
Who's a stay-at-home mom.
Cool.
So she's basically the reason that I've been able to create all these businesses is I have these gigantic ideas, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I just dump it on her, and then she does like all the legal stuff. She sets up the corporations, the accounts, and she's the backbone of the business, and then I'm just the guy that's creating the ideas.
Yeah. That's what I gather from everything that you've said up to this point. You've made, whether this is what you call it or not, you've made a very conscious and strategic effort to live in your flow at all times. Like you said before we got on the show, just stay in your lane and do the thing, right?
Yes, sir. So growing up as a kid, I dropped out of high school as a freshman, and I did some time in the youth authority, about 38 months, and I pretty much had zero guidance growing up. I was just raised by a pack of wolves pretty much. And one of the things that I was able to realize is coming up, I mean, I did get an education later in life, but I didn't read the books as a kid. And so one of the things that I started doing when I started to change my life is I really paid attention to the people that were in my life. And I kind of have this idea, if you think of like a big bubble, and then you could really only have 10 people in your life. Really, I mean, you could have more, but 10 people are really going to impact where you know their kids, their families.
Right.
And some people have the ability to stretch that a little bit more. Some cannot even have 10. But I kind of assign like a property value to each person in my life. And you inherit 5.
Okay.
5 or 6. You know, your siblings, your mom and dad, a crazy uncle. And in my case, pretty much the people that I inherited, we all have problems and issues. You know, my mom and my dad, my sister, myself. And what you're trying to do is have it like a net positive overall. So it became very clear to me that I needed to just be surrounded by amazing people. And one of the things that I realized very young was that I didn't necessarily have to read the book in order to maybe exploit or benefit from the book. So I just started surrounding myself with people that were making it happen.
Yeah.
And kind of by osmosis, I was able to like start emulating them, and then that encouraged me to actually read the book in the long run. So I'm a firm believer that you got to have positive people around you.
Yeah.
And you know, because you inherit some that may not be. And if you're trying to have like an overall net positive, like let's say you end up with a bunch of negative 5s, you got to bring in people that are like on the positive 10 to kind of balance that out.
Sure.
And you're definitely in control of the people that you have in your life.
Right.
And it should be all people that are going to be positive influences.
So playing that scenario all the way through, whether you inherit them or you go out, you seek them out, there's a lot of self-work that you have to do to attract the other 5, right? So if you have a net -5 on inheritance, right, and you're trying to attract a net 10, right? What did you do in working on yourself to attract those people? Because, you know, those two camps are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
For sure. So like the first thing is when you lack education, you need to be willing to outwork the room. So the way that I was able to separate myself was with a tireless work ethic. And that's where everything started. I mean, that's how I know how to do it. I know how to put more elbow grease than the next guy. So if you're a powerhouse worker, I'm going to just outdo you. And then the second thing I did was pay attention. A lot of people don't pay attention. And I assign my students tasks. And I say, like, go to an office park, leave your phone in your car, and sit down and look around and just watch people. And you're going to see that a large majority of people are just miserable. And they're walking around, their heads are down, they're disengaged from everybody else, and they're not paying attention. And so by paying attention, the people that are living in that space too, they're seeing that I'm paying attention, and they're seeing that I'm working hard. So a lot of the positive role models in my life actually recruited me. And it was just because I was trying to just make myself known. And it actually translates into coaching. Most of the fighters that I coach have way more experience than I do. Like I'm Lance Palmer's jiu-jitsu instructor. He's a 4-time state champion in high school, 4-time All-American at Ohio State. He's got a win over Jordan Burroughs. I cannot teach that guy about grappling. There's nothing I can teach him that he doesn't already know. But he knows that I pay attention, and he knows that I'm a workhorse, and he knows that I care. And he also knows that when we're on the road together, my decision-making is rock solid. No one's going to get in trouble. No one's going to go to jail. We're going to make it. We're going to make weight. We're going to make it on time.
Yeah.
And he knows I'm not going to sell the farm. And so I think it all starts with paying attention and working hard.
You have 8 gyms?
I have 8 gyms, yes, sir.
Where'd you start with one?
I started,
how'd you get into the entrepreneur game?
Okay, so I started out with a gym. I'm not going to name any names, and I love the man who started me out. And but it was, imagine just training in a dark room, and there was no light, no air. It was a really political space, like us versus the world type of thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And again, I'm saying that I'm trying to bring positivity and people, and I want the windows open, and I want air coming in, and I want to hear from everybody, and I want to train with everything. So I ended up breaking away from that gym and going to another one of my friend's gyms called Subtech MMA. And so we were training there, and then we started training with Eddie Bravo. He is the founder of 10th Planet. He's the guy that gave me my black belt eventually. And we started training at Subtech, and it was all no-gi, jiu-jitsu, and I was like, I made sure that I had an influence. No politics. We're not going to do that. We're just going to be open to everybody. And, you know, I also believe that if you truly love your students, you're going to encourage the cross-training. You want them to get better. I don't know everything. So, like, I'll tell them, they'll ask me a question. I'm like, I don't know. And let me research, see what we could come up with. And so I always encourage my guys to go other places and train. And so from Subtech MMA, we ended up hooking up with Eddie Bravo. And then shortly thereafter, we opened up 10th Planet Costa Mesa. That's the first gym.
Okay.
And the reason I did that is because I wanted to create a gym that was culture and driven first and not political. And
right.
And I view a lot, you know, it's a scarcity mindset. Most gyms, they operate like, oh, if you go train there, you're going to end up signing up over there and you're going to cancel here. And I look at it like, if my students are training somewhere else, it puts pressure on me to step my game up and be a better coach. Like, I'm just going to keep trying to out-coach everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, it hasn't hurt me yet.
Coming from the struggles of your youth, which, you know, I would venture to guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of that is predicated on a mindset of scarcity. What was the moment or the person that you ran into that flipped the script and helped you adopt the mindset of abundance?
Well, it really happened on night one. You know, so I was fortunate enough. I mean, I was in prison with kids that literally grandparents were gang members, parents were gang members.
Jesus.
They were gang members. And it's really unfortunate that.
Was that your story too?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver household. From birth to 8, my mom and dad, they loved each other. I would watch my mom and my dad making out. My dad would like open the door for her.
Yeah.
We didn't know that my dad was leaving until the night that he left. You know, he was in love with my mom.
Yeah.
And so my sister and I grew up in a very loving household. And then once my dad took off, he just disengaged from the family pretty much. And then my mom, you know what happens to a young woman who becomes a single mother. It's just really hard.
Yeah.
And so basically my parents got wrapped up in their own lives and then just forgot about my sister and I.
Yeah.
And so we kind of turned to the streets and I luckily for me, I never got involved in gangs. I kind of lived in two worlds. My dad lived in like one of the nicest areas of Orange County, and my mom would kind of live in like LA, like suburbs, the valley areas. And so I was a little soft to fit in LA, and I was a little too hard to fit in Orange County. And that really helped me later. And so I just remember that the first night that I went to jail, I was facing a significant amount of time, a ton of time. At first, I did a lot of bad things, but for this particular instance, I wasn't directly involved, but they just throw a bunch of time and then they plead down just to get you to plead guilty to something of a lesser charge. They just try to dragnet everybody. Yeah. And I kind of got caught in the wash on this one. But the day that I got arrested, I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm not like these guys. I'm different. And there was a youth counselor in there that she sat me down. Her name was Faith Jennings, and I was pretty upset, you know. And she just talked to me, and she was like, hey, if you make it out of here, it's your responsibility to make sure you don't come back. And I literally lived by that.
Yeah.
And so I went in with a 3rd grade reading level. And my mom still has the first letter I ever wrote her. It was like, imagine just typing letters with 0 space, 0 punctuation, terrible spelling. It was like a complete page of just letters. You can't even read it. It's insane. And you could see the progression of the letters that I would write her over the course of the years. And I just really took education seriously and mindset and just conditioning myself and making pillars. That's one thing that I did is it's just like, I got to get out of here. I can't wait for anyone to do it for me. And it was just one conversation. I remember the first night going in and just saying, whoa, I'm different. Yeah. And then obviously the second thing was talking to Faith Jennings, and she changed my life that night.
Does she know that?
No, I haven't seen her since then.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, that was obviously before social media. I bet you could find her.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, she came into my cell at night by herself. She walked in and sat down, and that's like against the rules. You cannot do that. Yeah. And she just saw me in there upset. It was really late, and she walked in, and she was like, hey, honey, you're going to be fine. And she just kind of
walked you through it.
Yeah. It was nuts. It was crazy. Powerful moment.
And, you know, it's interesting about those angels that come into your life that way, you know, because that conversation obviously changed the course of your life. And, you know, she was just doing her job, you know, looking out for you. And, you know, life goes on. You know what I'm saying? And I think that with all the resources that we have now, when I hear stories like that, it's like I think there's an opportunity there to reach out and, you know, especially when you know who they are. You know, it's not like that one time I ran into this person. You know, it's like look what I've done because of that conversation, right?
Yeah,
that's wild.
I should definitely reach out. It's just it's kind of the way the dynamic was.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, totally.
Prisoner.
Yeah. Well, she probably doesn't even, you know. You're probably not the first kid she's had that conversation with.
Yeah, she's probably retired. I mean, I've had a couple counselors, like youth counselors over the years that have reached out to me on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah.
They remember you.
Yeah, one of them I'm still in touch with because cool. I try to be an outlier everywhere, you know. And that's how I raise my kids, you know, the same way. Is like, man, we're gonna embrace the struggle and we're gonna look for it. We're gonna look for opportunities to fail. I mean, I think that's so important in building character. Yeah. You know, I send my kids everywhere. My 2 teenagers, I have an 18, a 17, a 4, and a 1-year-old.
Oh, right on.
And so, like, the teenagers, it's like, oh, you guys want to go wrestle at Nationals? Cool. Doesn't matter how much. I just spend the money. I don't even worry about it. I just send them. I send them wherever they want to go. Yeah. And then they get hung up on winning and losing sometimes. And I'm like, nah, man, it's in the process. It's in the journey. That's the magic. You know, when you're 70 and you're sitting back and you're looking at your grandkids, no one's going to care about your wins and losses. It's just that you actually went out and did it. Right. And so that's, that's just kind of what I'm pushing, just being an outlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, even when I was inside, I learned that very young. It's like, oh, everybody's going that way. I'm going to do things different.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you go? Is there a separation between who you are as a father and who you are as a coach in terms of the interaction with your kids and your athletes?
There's definitely a separation between, but I think my kind of approach is similar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to hold them accountable as much as I can.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, like, I have more control over my children.
Sure.
But with my fighters, I still give them the love that I would give. I mean, if I'm working with you, it's because I love you.
Yeah.
I don't need the money, the coaching money. I don't need it. I'm not there's a lot of coaches that don't own gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that fighters have more control over those coaches because they get their money directly from said fighter.
Yeah.
Whereas I just sit back and choose now. It's like, yeah, I'll work with you, or nah, you could just pay tuition at the gym and train, but I won't travel.
Yeah.
So the guys that I am working with, they do get a real, like, fatherly type figure from me. And I would say it's more similar than not, but at the end of the day, like, the people that I coach, they're adults primarily. My children are kids, so
sure.
I treat them just a little different, but a lot of the strategies is the same.
Explain to me MMA culture, right? I find it just beyond interesting because my brother works with Chris Conley over there in Birmingham, and a fellow Marine, and but my brother, when the date is set, my brother's here, there, and everywhere training. How does it? What is the dynamic between you guys as coaches when, like, Eric comes and trains with you in his camp?
Well, I would say in general, most coaches do not like it.
Okay.
Chris and I get along well, and Chris usually travels part of the time here with Eric when he comes to town.
Yeah.
And I think that it just shows a lot about the individual coach because you can't have scarcity mindset. You just can't. You're not going to be successful that way. That's real short-term thinking.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you truly care about the people that you coach, that's going to come across in your actions. So guys like Chris, Eric's fortunate that he's got a guy like Chris. Chris understands that Eric's going to need to get around and see some other things and train with some other bodies. I mean, I know they've got Walt Harris over there, and they've got TB and a couple other guys, but when Eric comes to town, he's getting tons of people that are his weight, his size, his athletic ability. The days of just being a martial artist, those are long gone. Now MMA is evolving to a place where people can actually make real money doing it.
Yeah.
When I was coming up, you would get, if you're lucky, 150 to show and 150 to win dollars.
Shit.
Yeah, and so now people are able to, make that, like pretty good money.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe even millions in some cases. So it's MMA's kind of drawing out Eric Anders and D1 caliber athletes, where before I'm the worst athlete in the world. I'm not a good athlete. So I'm a martial artist first. And there's just no space for us anymore left. And so as the athletes get better, the coaching is going to need to evolve. And if you can't evolve your coaching style, you're going to have to be willing to share your athletes. Right. And in Eric's case, I think he's very lucky to have Chris, because Chris is very humble.
Yeah.
And he understands, and he allows that to happen.
Right.
But a lot of coaches can't do that. They'll cut you out. Oh, you want to train there? You're off the team. And they just kick you out. It's so weird.
Well, I don't understand how that mindset helps the athlete in any way, because obviously, like in Eric's case, Eric is a extremely gifted athlete but he's also huge. There's not a lot of dudes his size with his athletic ability like within arm's reach. So it just makes sense to, farm him out, so to speak, to get that experience against, because those guys, exists somewhere, and you want to have a little bit of that experience prior to it's just you and me in the ring, right?
Yeah, so like the old school way, it was a martial arts kind of world, right? Where it's like you get a guy, he knows nothing.
Right.
And then you kind of bring him up, and then he's under you, like literally under you. You're the instructor, they bow to you and everything. So
Right.
it's like you got all that you can because of me. Like everything you are today is because of me. That's kind of the mindset still with these old school coaches.
Yep.
But like I was saying, as like the real athletes are coming in, it kind of needs to shift to more of like a football team approach to coaching. It's literally, I look at it like this. Let's just use Eric since we're talking about him.
Yeah.
He's my fighter now, let's just say. He signs to fight whatever fighter at 205, and we're going down to Sao Paulo in 12 weeks to fight.
Yep.
I'm going, okay, you inked the contract, the fight's set. We have a 50-50 chance of winning this fight now. There's a couple of variables that we can never control. One is, are you a better wrestler than him? We can't control that. Are you a better kickboxer than him? We cannot control that. Are you a better jiu-jitsu athlete than him? We can't control that. But what we can control is your cardio. How is your cardio? Are you going to be able to hold up for 5 rounds at 100% clip? That's the one thing that we're really going to focus on, because that is what we can control.
Right.
And then your effort in the gym, we can control your effort in the gym. Your recovery, we can control your recovery. And so if you look at like the way that I'm talking, it's starting to sound more and more like a football practice, like where they're working on the athleticism, strength and conditioning, recovery, and of course we're doing martial arts training.
Right.
But if you can't control whether or not you're a better kickboxer than your opponent, like in 12 weeks, I cannot make you better than him at any skill set.
Right.
But I can make you a better athlete and a more conditioned athlete, and we can make sure that you're feeling great on fight night.
Yeah.
And so those are the 3 things that you need to focus. So the shift of coaching inside the MMA space has to change. It has to shift
Right.
to more of like an athletic endeavor. And actually, I even like the mindset now. Of course, we've got the Bushido fighters that are like, I'm in the gym, I'm sharpening my skills. I want to go test them against a fully resistant training athlete that's signed to fight me.
Yeah.
Like those guys still exist, and that's an awesome way to look at it. But I do like the fighters that are like, nah, this is just an athletic event.
Yeah.
And we need to treat it like that. And I find that that's a real powerful approach. And the coaches that are adopting that are having a lot of success.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. Do you think from a business standpoint, MMA is ever going to get to where boxing is? In terms of the promotion, the money involved, the prize purse, like is it growing that direction?
Well, boxing has a couple hundred years,
Right.
Jump on MMA. In a way, I hope it does.
Yeah.
But then there's another part of me that hope it doesn't, because the politics in boxing is gross.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many belts, and it's really convoluted, and the fighters pick and choose who they're gonna fight. And I kind of I really don't like how the UFC kind of has a monopoly on the market.
Okay.
I'm happy that Bellator actually has really good athletes, and ONE FC is doing a good job, and ONE FC grabs UFC athletes, and then the UFC athletes go fight at ONE FC and get knocked out. That's showing that there's other organizations with real talent.
Right.
But I do like how the UFC does not let the champs duck fighters.
Oh, okay.
Like Floyd has been fighting, he's 42-0 or 41-0, and he fought Pacquiao old, Oscar De La Hoya old, and they do that on purpose. In the UFC, you cannot.
Okay.
You get the belt, and Dana White says, hey, like Joe Benavidez is one of my fighter.
Okay.
He has a win over Cejudo. Cejudo's the champ.
Right.
And Cejudo's got to defend the 25-pound belt. And Dana White just said it. Dana White was like, Joe's next. And we beat him before.
Yeah.
So, like, how can you be the champ at 125 when there's a guy that beat you and you're trying not to fight him? And so Dana White's like, nah, you guys got to fight.
Yeah.
In boxing, that fight would never happen.
Okay.
Why would Cejudo give somebody a rematch? He could just kind of like bounce around Joe. Joe's already in his 30s. He waits like 2 or 3 more years, and Joe's going to retire.
Yeah.
Dana White's not letting that happen. So I hope the money catches up to boxing, but I hope the politics never do.
Right.
I hope it stays where the top fighters in MMA fight the top fighters in their primes, not when they're long in the tooth.
Yeah, I didn't know that was the dynamic. I never I don't get involved in, you know, the selection process of my brother's career. You know, I'm just one of his biggest cheerleaders. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know if like it was a business decision on his part as a fighter, which I'm sure it is. But Eric's the kind of guy, he's like, I'll fight anybody anywhere. You want me to come down to 125? I'll try. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's a real statement, and that's one of the things with Eric we've talked about. I'm like, man, you got to stop just taking these short notice fights all the time. In the UFC, you can say yes. Or you can say no. Okay. But usually the reason you would say no is because you're injured or you can't get ready. It's just kind of there's an assumption that the fighter's just going to say yes when one of the matchmakers from the UFC calls. And actually, Yair Rodriguez was supposed to fight Zabit and said no, and Dana White cut him.
Wow.
Yeah, and Yair is an amazing. He's back with the UFC now. UFC brought him back in, but if you say no too many times, they just cut you.
Yeah.
You just get out of here. You don't want to fight. You're out.
Cutthroat, huh?
Yeah, and boxing's definitely not like that. Like a prospect, you're gonna get to 22-0, and you've never fought anybody in boxing.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. You know, we always. It's easy to be on the outside looking in, and you know, talking about. You know, the career of a fighter in hindsight. You know, you take the Thiago John Jones, right, and how in my eyes, and I'm asking you more as a professional because I'm extremely novice. I think I've rolled 3 times in my life up to this point. How good that made Eric look.
Oh yeah,
based on Eric took that fight with Thiago on 6 days' notice and went 3 rounds, like stood in the middle of the ring and threw it down. And one of the funniest things about my brother is after the dust had settled on the Thiago fight, I was like, dude, what's it like to just stand in the middle of the ring and just throw hands? And his response to me is fucking beautiful. I can't wait to get him back on the show so we can talk about it from his standpoint. He's like, sometimes you just got to bite down on that mouthpiece and see what happens.
Oh yeah. It's funny that you brought up that Thiago fight because I was there. I had Ben Saunders fighting on that card.
Okay.
But
John Jones or Eric's fight?
Eric versus Thiago. Okay. Yeah. In Sao Paulo. Yeah. I was there for that fight. Okay. And so Eric was here in Vegas, and we were training. Okay. And he had no fight scheduled. Right. And Saturday night, so his manager, Jason House, is one of my one of my best friends. Okay. And so Eric is here training with me in Vegas because he was here at the PI doing some testing. Yeah. And we went to my favorite Mexican place right here called Lindo Michoacan. And we were sitting down, and we were ordering. And it was Saturday night, and he was flying out Sunday morning. Okay. And he's like, man, what do you think I should eat? And I'm like, you don't have anything booked? Get the wet burrito. And I mean, it's giant. It's just covered with cheese and sauce. And he's like, okay, I'm going to get it. And so we just pigged out. Yeah. We pigged out. And then I wake up. I was leaving Monday morning to go to Sao Paulo because when you're flying that far, you don't leave on Tuesday. You leave on Monday. And so I wake up Sunday morning and my phone's ringing, and Jason House called me, and he's all, guess what? Your boy is fighting on the Sao Paulo card. And I was like, oh shit, he literally just left. I'm like, when did this happen? And it happened right after that dinner. They figured out that they were going to do it. So then he literally flew from Vegas back home and then immediately took off down to Sao Paulo to go fight. What a savage. Dude. And my fight career it never really even started. I have a couple of fights, but one of the turning points in my life, I used to train Tony Ferguson back in the day. Okay. And Tony Ferguson broke his arm in the first round of his fight against Michael Johnson. Finished the whole fight, lost by decision. That's the last loss he had in the UFC. He had surgery, got a plate in it. We're getting him ready for UFC 166, and he broke his arm in training 2 weeks before the fight.
Ugh.
Right? So he disappears from the gym. I don't see him for a few days. He comes in, and he's like, grab my wrist. And I grabbed his wrist, and he had a plate from here to here. And he would do this with his wrist, and I can feel the bone going, dunk, 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 dunk. And I'm like, oh, so we're pulling out. We're not going to go? And he's like, hell no, we're going. And I go, man, I better retire because we fought at the same weight class, 55. So what would happen if I got locked in a cage with that guy, a guy who breaks his arm before a fight, and it never even registers to him to pull out?
Right.
And so that was also another realization I had at that moment, and your brother falls in line with that too. Mm-hmm. They're just different.
Yeah.
They're just different. Like, I mean, I can summon that kind of energy if you walk into my house and you're trying to rob me or hurt my family.
Yeah.
You know, I will fight until the last breath. But for money, it's like, dude, I mean, just if you really think about what he did, we're here in Vegas. Everybody's just chilling, relaxed. We're pigging out.
Right.
And then inside of 48 hours, he's on a flight down to Sao Paulo to fight Thiago Santos.
Yeah.
I mean, that shit's bananas, man. It is nuts. And those are just a rare breed.
Yeah.
Those are a rare breed.
He's wired differently, man. And like that's one of the most intriguing parts because he's my brother and I know his mindset and how he's wired. Like whether it's a good fight or not, like the two individuals in that cage are batshit crazy. Like they're fucking nuts, man.
Yeah, and there's the only person that needs to believe you're gonna win is you. That's it. Mm-hmm. And as long as you believe you can win, you can win. Because it's just another human. At the end of the day, it's just another guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have like a really weird delusion. I have one submission that I think I'm the best in the world at. Okay. It's called a side choke. Basically, I'm choking you with my arm and your arm in. Okay. And I've developed that to samurai level. Yeah. Like I can lop your head off with zero effort. Yeah. And I would fight anyone because I think that I can if I could just stay alive long enough to get a hold of your head and arm, I'll put anyone to sleep. Yeah. And so like these fighters have more than one way to win. Yeah. You know, so it's a lot easier for them to process it.
Which is a very good, that's an interesting point because, that is it the Bruce Lee quote? The guy who masters one technique is more dangerous than the person who tries to master 1,000 or whatever. Yes. Is that Bruce Lee? Ronda Rousey had her thing and like until it wasn't, does that statement still apply in mixed martial arts?
For sure. I mean, we were talking about how it's going away from the martial artist to the athlete, right? Women's MMA is about 15 years behind men's MMA. Okay. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, you look at Ronda Rousey's probably been out of the game for 3 or 4 years now, and she was in her peak about 5 years ago. Yep. And she's a martial artist. She's a judo player. And she was ragdolling everyone, all the number one contenders, taking them out in the first round, just beating the brakes off of them. Yep. And then as the athletic people started coming up and the fighters became like real athletes and real fighters, Ronda started getting smashed. Right. And Ronda stayed a martial artist, and then all of a sudden you get the martial artist athlete in there, and then Ronda had nothing. Okay. She had nothing for them. Like if you have one skill set that's highly developed and you resist change, you're going to lose. Okay. And so that's why I was saying, like, these fighters have, like, more than one way. They have, like, a wrestling base that they grew up with, so they're great grapplers. Right. And then they become good kickboxers. And just imagine the psychology of that. Like, I can take you down anytime I want. I know I can. But I'm also a good striker, so I'm going to try to knock you out until I don't like it. And then when I don't like it, I'm going to take you down and then beat you up there. I mean, that's two things.
Right.
Like the fact that you can out-wrestle anyone gives you confidence in your striking, because as soon as it starts going sideways, you just take them down. So the athletes that had that one thing, now they're adding 2 or 3, and they're just becoming incredibly dynamic. Whereas, like, you're a karate guy, and you're just staying a martial artist, like, I'm just going to keep doing karate, you're going to get killed in there if you don't add other skill sets.
The the world of professional MMA is really interesting, and I really hope that guys like you, guys like Eric, write books about how it all manifested for them, because I got to watch Eric make that transition from football to like a desk job. You know, he used to send me YouTube videos like every 15 minutes all fucking day when he was between careers, right? And then he falls in love with MMA. And dude, as I'm sure you know, in the beginning, in the at the amateur level, it's a grind, man.
Oh, it's
like, do you get discovered? Like, how does Eric had a name? So like, if you're just some kid on the street, you know, like, I feel like I've heard a story like yours a lot. You know, I was a troubled youth. You know, this became my outlet, and now I get to make money at it. The Diaz brothers are that.
Yep.
You know, like, what makes them more fortunate in terms of the longevity and the progression of their careers than everybody else that's fighting for $125 on a Saturday night?
Well, it's just like any other thing, right? Like, if you put your whole self into it, and you go all in, you're gonna be successful. Because I like to not use MMA or jiu-jitsu when I talk about this.
Sure.
But let's say rock climbing. I actually do, like, when someone comes in and they want to sign up, we sit here at this desk, and I bring out a piece of paper and I draw a diagram on it. Okay. But we won't use jiu-jitsu just because it's more powerful when you don't.
Right.
So the guy's like, I don't know, you know, I have kids and a wife, and I have a full-time job, and I really want to do this, but I don't know if I'm going to have the time. And so what I do is we'll just say that it's rock climbing, because it's a really good analogy, or paddle boarding, or hiking, or surfing, or whatever, golf. So then I go, okay, well, rock climbing is this rock, and I draw a rock in the middle of the page. And then over here is a katana blade. So it's just a sword, right? And this sword represents everything about you that's good. And then over here, we got the steaming pile of poo emoji. And this represents everything that's bad about you. So you take this one thing that you've always wanted to do, whatever it is, rock climbing, jiu-jitsu, MMA, and you apply your whole self to it. This rock, this idea, this thing that you want to do, this thing that you're willing to give up everything for, it becomes the tool that sharpens the blade of all the good things about you, and it becomes the tool that smashes out all the shitty things about you. If you allow it and you really put yourself into it, you can sell anything. You know, if you like paddleboarding, there's a lake about 20 miles from here, Lake Mead. You can literally take people from the Strip to Lake Mead paddleboarding, and you can make a living doing it if you love it more than everybody else, and you pay attention and you do your homework. And so I usually write out this diagram with everybody, and it's like, if it's something, so MMA is powerful for broken people like me, insofar as, like, we forget that we can learn as adults. And so, like, one of, like, the best students in the world are the guy, he's a little overweight, he's got a desk job, he hates it. He's like suffering inside because he's not, you know, we forget. You watch like a baby, they try to walk, they fall down, they try to walk, they fall down, they try to walk, they fall down, and they never quit. until they learn how to walk. They just keep going. And you watch a baby, their posture is perfect. Like they drop something, because I have a 1-year-old at home. She drops something. She doesn't bend at the back.
Right.
She squats down, picks it up. And we only learn to be terrible as we get older, right? But you start out mechanically. You could put your legs behind your head when you're babies. They're completely flexible. And as we become adults, we forget that we can learn again. You see everybody like, oh, man, it's just kind of, I'd like to go to school, but it's too late for me. And you hear all this. Jiu-jitsu and MMA, the pursuit of perfection, is so valuable to young adults because they come in and they don't know anything. They don't know how to do an arm bar. And then all of a sudden, the pursuit of the perfect arm bar, they want to do it right. So they apply, and then they get it. And it's like, oh, shit, I can learn. This is a new skill. And then it kind of bleeds over into their whole life. You know, all of a sudden, they're better fathers, better husbands, better employees. Because it's like, if you're going to have a desk job, why would you do the minimum work required to not get fired? Why wouldn't you go in there and just kill it every day?
Right.
You know, and so this pursuit, whatever the pursuit is, this rock is going to sharpen all those really good qualities. And then all those like average things in your life where it's like, man, I'm not going to put my report in on time. My boss is not going to fire me. I'm just going to take it easy. All of a sudden, you're not going to start acting like that. You're like, man, I'm here. I might as well just kick ass while I'm here.
Yep.
And I see that in a lot of people. So it's really not MMA and it's really not jiu-jitsu. It could be just getting fit, CrossFit. Yeah. It could be just working out. It could be anything. But whatever it is, just love it and chase it and pursue it and put your whole heart into it. And it's going to start spilling out into all levels of your life. Yeah, for sure.
Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have this conversation. I think that everybody that listens to this show is going to be a better person if they apply even a little bit of what you talked about today. For my tribe, where can they go find you, support you, celebrate your success, and watch everything that you're making moves on, man?
My name is Casey Halstead. So on Facebook, you can see me there. Coach Casey 10 on Instagram. I'm pretty much on Instagram the most. And then I have a YouTube channel, Coach Casey 10. And the YouTube channel is a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about the amount of people and the values of everybody, mindset. Yep. And basically, I shoot those YouTube videos for my children. I want to leave a legacy for my grandchildren. And so it's kind of shot in a way where I'm speaking directly to them. So when I'm gone, they have some reference material. And if anybody can find any value in that, please. I mean, it's all public on YouTube.
Yeah. Dude, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, my brother.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks. Definitely. For you guys out there in the interweb, appreciate you guys tuning in. And remember, focus on the things that matter: health, wealth, relationships, and time. We'll see you next week.